Welcome to the ClashCast podcast. I'm Colton Cruz.
I'm Wyatt Garland.
Brianna Marshall.
Welcome to the podcast where we analyze and talk about anime.
And punch things with our mouths.
Today's topic, American anime.
Yeah. Before we dive into that interesting twist, if your ears get tired, we've got some premium eye content over at our YouTube channel, ClashKO. Check it out. But right now we're going to be talking about, American anime, or more or less, America's attempt to replicate, whether successfully or not.
What? There can't be American anime?
Okay, alright.
Because anime is Japanese animation?
Yeah. Nani?
By definition, absolutely. So it's interesting when they try. Now, there's been some debate on the first one.
The first American anime?
Yeah. Well,
American or the first non-Japanese anime?
The first non-Japanese.
Non-Japanese.
I think the ones that we were acquainted to first, the ones that was presented to us as if it was an anime, but it was actually done by Americans. Mm-hmm. I thought, personally for me, it was The Last Airbender. Mm-hmm. Because...
Yeah, I think that's the biggest American one, for sure.
Yeah. It just followed the structure all the way. I mean, it had, the power levels. It had, like, the crazy Super Saiyan state. It had pretty much everything checked off.
A lot of elements.
Yeah.
I think the Western, or the Eastern themes really, helped cement it in people's minds to, this is foreign, because, I would say, because there's a lot of, if we have any French listeners, I'm sure they would argue that there's, been, France is a huge thing.
Absolutely.
I'm sure they have, some kind of historical example they'd point to, and, actually, it's this.
Yeah, there was that one where it's the ladybug cat thing, right?
Well, yeah, I think that's been a big thing,
Yeah, it's been very popular.
And I would say that's even, derivative of, Ruby, which is, a YouTube anime.
Yeah.
Even more specific than, an American anime. But, Last Airbender, I think, is a fair,
the first.
Well, it's just for
us.
me.
First bridging, kind of
Well, it was on Nickelodeon. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I was 12. I remember I was in Europe during the shot. We were on vacation when it came out. And I was over at someone else's house, some of our friends in, Europe. And I was like, I know this is Norway, but can we turn on Cartoon Network? Because I want to see the new episode. And they're like, okay. So I watched it there. It was interesting.
Weird.
Yeah.
What did they think?
Oh, they did. The same thing anyone thinks of when they look at me, like as a 12-year-old freaking out about animation. They're like, okay, I'll do this thing.
But I think it's weird because it's like I was saying before in some of our other videos, I grew up on 4Kids TV, and it's they show the classes Yu-Gi-Oh, Zatch Bell and all that, and I was like, all right, I've learned that this is anime. But then turning to Cartoon Network, I was just like, wait, there's anime on here?
They had the Toonami kind of had an anime section.
Yeah.
Because I mean, not to shit on your theory, but we all saw Pokemon before we saw The Last Airbender.
Yeah, but that is anime.
That is anime. But I'm just saying, but that is teaching us what
right.
anime is.
And I'm just interested in because I remember when the movie Sucker Punch came out. There were a lot of anime elements in the trailer and in the movie.
Yeah, the aesthetic was
Eastern
very
influence,
exactly. And
that's the other thing I would say. There's we'll see a lot of anime influence in any of the areas where cartoons were a little more edgy or a little more kind of art to them. Samurai Jack even has kind of an anime influence.
Same with Teen Titans. I think
Teen Titans is a huge example.
Yeah. Very good example. Yeah. Of just sort of that direction.
Yeah, and both of those, all those things are very Western cartoons, but
they have a lot of
their creators were very influenced. Yeah. They knew what anime was. I mean, it's really hard to look at, we think of Dragon Ball or One Piece, where's the anime influence in this? But I mean, you have to really, if you go back to Speed Racer being
oh my God,
an influential anime, you'll see elements of that in a lot of just even Western cartoons.
Oh yeah, a lot of Hanna-Barbera stuff too.
Yeah, even Hanna-Barbera. Yeah.
So it's always been sort of there as
first American anime, Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, I mean it's the squad, it's the team. Yeah. But Scooby-Doo is a good point to make of how. A lot of anime is very plot driven, and I think that's the big separating factor. A lot of American animations, because we were talking about this earlier, is Adventure Time technically an American anime?
Right.
It's not specifically because it's got that very specific American comedy thing. Was oh no, you can watch these out of order completely.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's a huge thing I think of just how cartoons are distributed in America. Kind of like we talked about in another podcast. Is because the way it works in America is it had to come on at Saturday morning, and a kid had to have access to the television, and if they missed an episode, like, they were just boned if there was a continuing plot, so there had to be enough coming through. Because I know that was so frustrating to me as a child, was you could never watch anything. You could never get a full plot out of a show.
Yeah.
And, I imagine just the way it's distributed in Japan, it just works a lot differently there.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's because they have an older fan base.
An older fan base, more access to television, I think.
Oh, yeah. I guess you're right.
Yeah, I mean, like, what is it, like, I remember when we were, like, getting cell phones, like, in Japan, they had, like, TV on cell phones already. Like,
oh, wow.
It was, like, a huge thing,
I guess there is always that.
They also, like, they really care about their TV. Their TV's, like, so much better than American TV.
Yes,
like,
they are.
Of course, it's quality.
Like, not even programming, but just, like, technicality. They're like, no, we'll invest. Like, they had 4K, like, broadcast-free, like, PBS TV, like, back in 2011, like... And here we are, like...
Yeah, no,
we're slowly getting there.
We're getting there.
480p basic cable, like...
But now that the field is changing for a little bit for the Americans as far as how we absorb content, with Netflix coming out with all their anime, their anime, and we're getting to the point where, I think the most modern version of sort of an animation that is specifically American, that's on an American channel, and that is completely... it feels like it's Steven Universe is what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. Rebecca Sugar's Steven Universe feels 100% its own IP. And yes, it's borrowing themes and structure, but it feels, it feels very unique. Like, I'm not seeing another structure. Like, yeah, there's some Sailor Moon in there, but it's doing its own thing enough. Like,
right, it doesn't feel like it's a copy of anything. It very much feels like its own kind of unique IP, like you were saying. But it is, like, borrowing almost evenly from, like, everything. It's following, like, a Western cartoon model, and then it's got a lot of the fresh, like, kind of avant-garde, like, Adventure Time stuff in it, and then there's a huge chunk of, kind of anime style, for sure.
With the back plot of the stories and the diamonds and all sorts of things. So it's setting itself up to be really interesting, and it's being released at a reasonable pace, considering, its limitations. Cartoon Network can't bang them out quite as easily as, like a serial season or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it's, the 11-minute episode model, too, which I don't know of an anime I can think of off the top of my head that's been big that does the same kind of thing.
Right.
They're mostly, like, for, like, little shorts like that. It's more like those, like, chibi or, like, sort of, like, parody, like, anime.
Yeah, I guess, the closest thing would be, like, doing, like the chibi version they did of, like, Attack on Titan, like, in between all the seasons.
That was a season, yeah.
Or, I mean, like, kind of like, like, art, like, like, reflecting itself as, like, Teen Titans Go is just one of those, but, like, an American show.
Yeah.
Like, talking about a different kind of anime we don't watch, like, Teen Titans Go isn't an exact copy of, like, again, that chibi in-between show, like, model. Yeah.
Where they're not going anywhere, right. There's no real plot. And, I mean... That was the most exciting thing for me about Airbender is when I remember I didn't finish all of the first season, but then I started watching Korra, and I'm like, oh, right, things actually
Korra
happened.
compared to even Last Airbender, I would say, is much more in that anime stream.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
Just a stronger, more active protagonist who is more violent and confrontational.
Yeah.
Versus Aang, who has been guided through
a hero's journey.
Well, a hero's journey, and Last Airbender is very much a story about, like, exploring the world.
Right.
And, like, what's in it, whereas Korra is about a character, in the world.
Yeah, they're in this city that she goes to, and then they go back to her home, and, and then they're figuring out her things for most of the time. And that's great because, you get a dissection of a character. They do the classic sort of... I remember when they get to the part in Korra where, she has to confront herself and she has got a shadow self following her.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's very anime, it's good because it takes a character and starts picking them apart. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thread that I'm talking about. That's the idea that sometimes isn't implanted in certain American animations or stories, because the idea is, there's a sequel or it's a serial thing where it is kind of invincible, and they make fun of that, and I do like that idea. The Bugs Bunny concept or something, like, where it's just like, no, I'm invulnerable to time or reason or logic, like so.
Which is an interesting thing. I think one of the like vehicles they use to like do that a lot is the villain. Like if you think about like any of the villains in Korra, there isn't that like, oh, she has to fight him every episode and there's like a goofy like end to it. It's like, no, we can set up kind of a villain who affects who the main character is, and we get to see the main character actually change throughout the series rather than just grow into someone we're told they're at the beginning. Like, if you look at something like oh man, what's an American cartoon? Like Danny Phantom.
Oh Jesus!
Like Danny Phantom doesn't like his power set grows and like everything, but like he has a character from like the start of the series to the end of the series. Really doesn't ever become a different person.
Right.
Past the limits of the 22 minute episode.
Exactly.
Whereas Korra at the beginning of like the season 1 versus like season 4, like they are very changed characters and on purpose. It's not like just. Change characters on purpose way, and affected by the world around them, and a villain that was set up, I think, as a vehicle that could like last that length.
Right, and that needed to be stopped. That's a thing.
Yeah.
A lot of times, American comics or stuff don't have, or American media doesn't have a villain that has to be stopped. Their goals are so comical, as if like, oh well, I'm going to take over the world, or I'm doing something evil. So it's just like, all right, well, I guess we should stop you whenever we can.
Yeah, and they're just forced to be so recyclable that even their plots have to be recyclable. Like they can't have like like a plot that's like, oh, like this will end it, or like like there's never a moment where I don't know, like a Ben 10 enemy has to be like, I either get this done or I die. There's no like finality to it. It's like, oh, they get whooped and then they have to come back again, maybe in a couple episodes or something. Like,
I think there's, because it kind of just like popped in my mind when we were talking about it. Like another show that kind of has that like, it's like they fight a villain, but they like kind of changes them like throughout the season. My Life as a Teenage Robot. Do you remember that show?
Oh, she's got a little reactability.
You never seen?
Never. I don't know what this is.
What?
It's pretty.
Break it down for me. What's the basic premise?
Okay, so it's like Powerpuff Girls. It's this teenage robot XJ9, or her name's Jenny, but it has like this like weird like anime like design but it's like Powerpuff Girls, kind of like Sailor Moon. It's like she fights crime, but then she's like, I want to be a regular teenager, so I'm going to go to school and do like the regular.
Yeah, and the thing about that, it's a very good point, because it does technically follow a 22 minute concept where not a lot of things change, but Jenny's perception of herself is something that is in flux. There's an episode where
because her gimmick is her identity.
Right,
yeah.
exactly.
That's clever. Yeah.
There's an episode where she wants to. I mean, almost all the episodes. One episode where she wants earrings, so she has to go buy ears and make them and like put them in a robot body, and she's changing her things. And there's other little things like that. But one of the coolest episodes was when she wanted skin. And, like, so we get a little bit deeper there, and she, like, her mom made it, because her mom's a scientist who made her, and her mom's like, oh, I had this prototype of, like, skin that's, like, this nanite, back when I thought it would be ludicrous enough to give you skin to blend, and she's like, oh, I put it on. She puts it on, and she has a Venom-type transformation, where she's suddenly Sally, or whatever her name was, where she's just got, like, and they did it a little sexual, where they were, like, they showed her glistening skin, she's, like, so comfortable and happy about looking so human. And then, they have the classic internal struggle. Like, oh, this isn't me. And it's like, no, I want to be this way. And they wrestle with that for a little bit. And, yeah, it never escaped too much of that, but that was the thing. The thing was her identity. So they explored that a lot.
They were forced to in some way, yeah. Yeah, I mean, another one we definitely wanted to talk about was kind of the reintroduction of Voltron. On
yeah, 100%.
And it's interesting because Voltron is at its source an American cartoon,
100%, yeah.
An American cartoon about mech robots, which, like, obviously, the 80s cartoon had some, like, crossover influence with the Gundam stuff. But then we're getting this new one, and it's so interesting to see that, for us, we never watched Voltron as kids.
No.
God, no.
But we watched a ton of anime, and so, like, I know when we feel it, but, like, also when we watch it, I can't help but kind of project that same kind of experience onto whoever's creating it. I'm like, yeah, these people probably never saw the original cartoon, but they know anime, so that's why they're throwing in anime stuff, because they're like, how else would this spin work?
Right, exactly.
And it's interesting, because, like, that's where almost all the anime is. Like, they have that teamwork, which is very, I think, just a modern take on the American cartoon.
Yeah.
but like all of the style of, you know, the lasers following each other, you know, like laser beams raking across things.
Oh, the design.
Transformation
animation.
sequences.
Oh.
The way Lotor jumps around and has the long like hair.
Flowy hair and like the glistening.
And I know that kind of crosses over a little bit with the American cartoon, but it feels so Sailor Moon, like in the sense that like
And one thing about the lasers, there's nothing more Japanese than a laser passing through something
and then
that half a second and then the explosion.
That like laser rake.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. But yeah,
same thing with, you know, spinning robot and the laser spinning around with it.
Oh
like,
yeah, a lot of motion.
They're Macross.
Yeah.
Like,
There's a flexibility. It's like, oh, we have an idea, and instead of like doing what's expected, because yes, they're gonna form Voltron every episode if they need to, but it's not quite as robot making of the week as it is.
Yeah, because
before.
they do in the Netflix reason. I think another talk about distribution model. You know, it's getting released in like 6 episode seasons now.
Wow, yeah.
Every couple of months. I mean, they don't want it. Like, I mean, God, if you see Voltron every episode, that's pretty boring. Like, you know. Like, I remember there was an episode in the newest season where they fight, you know, they do a kaiju fight. And it's the first kaiju fight like we've had on Voltron in a while. And I just remember, like, we're not going back to kaiju fights. And it was interesting, because, like,
I have a couple.
That's the thing, I had some nostalgia for it. But, like...
Yeah, they fought that plant thing.
Yeah, the plant thing.
Yeah, well, they incorporated some new characters, this and that.
Oh, and that's the thing. I mean, I think they play up kind of the emotional, like, characters a lot. Like, kind of rolling back to, like, another fusion show. If you look at, the character interaction in like the Mega Man X animated series, which was like an American cartoon, but like a Japanese property.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
The way that Mega Man and Proto Man interact is so reminiscent of how characters interact in Voltron. Like the way they have kind of like a brigade. I mean, one's blue and one's red, so like there's extra. But even that like little bit of like
it's the personality.
Even interpersonal relationships, like kind of like clashing with each other and then being rivals, but also being friends, and then like kind of being begrudging, like
there are like
comrades,
so many characters I can just immediately like name off, like
and
Sonic, like with Sonic X, like with like Sonic and Knuckles, and then like the 2K3. Sorry, I know.
Again, it's like it's the colors. So I mean,
even the same with the 2K3 series of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is by far my favorite series. It's solid. It's literally like that same interaction with like Leonardo and Raphael. You get that like tension with the red and the blue.
When they wrestle, I mean, that's when the sparks fly, and that's when interesting things happen. Then things are explained. Then you're like, oh, these characters had the tension between them, and that causes things to break and things to get dirty and scuffed up. And for me, that's the golden moment in any story or in any sort of like driving narrative, is when, you know, things don't line up.
I just realized as we were talking about Last Airbender. No, as we were talking the Last Airbender, Aang, which is blue, and then Zuko, which is red.
Oh yeah. Oh no, yeah. Do out like.
Oh my god!
They're just Mega Man and Proto Man and Mega Man X, guys.
No, it's the colors, guys. The colors mean something.
No, they're just Keith and what's his name in Voltron?
Keith and Lance.
They're just Keith and Lance.
Oh, Lance is a great character. He's been changing a lot. I like him.
Well, he's just such a slow burn, because they threw Finn's voice actor on him too, so you pay emphatic attention like, by trickery.
That's where the money is. That's where the money is. And then he's...
But Steven Yeun, you're like, whatever.
Yeah.
No, there's a lot of good stuff in that show. It's definitely, I'm excited about watching it every time.
It's like we were saying with Steven Universe. It's just so new.
Yeah.
It's got such a new kind of thing going on with it. It's like, your IP is based on this 80s American show, but like you've got this anime art influence, but you're on this new digital distribution platform that is unlike anything that's existed in television before.
So it's on an interesting cutting edge, and I think the most important thing to really look into that is where is this direction heading? I mean, Netflix is spitting out as much as it can, but these days it seems to just be borrowing. It just seems to be buying.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the time they're just licensing, something that's already aired in Japan.
Exactly, and that's the thing. It's like, okay, so I have pride as an American, art maker or media distributor. I want there to be more American-made shows that are just looking at the best animation or story elements that exist in the world.
You didn't like Castlevania by Netflix?
Stop it.
You didn't like their project, Castlevania?
We have a video on that, but there's successes and failures. I just want to see more. I mean, I want to see an honest attempt to investigate a more middle ground, mature audience in American media.
Just described Castlevania.
Shut up! I did.
That's exactly what that was supposed
I
to
said
be.
more. I said more, Colton.
But
I said good too.
But I do feel like we are slowly getting to that, like especially like for where we came from with the last Airbender, and then like with Voltron, and then even with Steven Universe, like with such a big hype. Like I every time I go to cons, I've never expected such a big like audience or hype with Voltron.
Oh,
like at
people
first I
love
was just
Voltron.
like, this is just a kid
The designs are just the character designs are just so good. Honestly, I remember that was what like hooked me on this show. Was we were at that at a convention and a group walked by and I was like, you were drawing them and I was like, oh, like what are you guys? Because your character designs are just so good. And they were like, oh, we're like Voltron. And I was like, no shit. I was like, because like I had never thought to check it out because I was like, that old clunky like 80s cartoon. They're just trying to like, you know, mine another like ingot of gold out of the like, you know, the tired mine. But it's so fresh, which is beautiful. But to your point of kind of, you know, an American money kind of getting into the anime. I mean, that's where we had Devilman Crybaby.
Yeah.
Oh.
That was a Netflix kind of initiated, you know, like kind of project.
Right.
In the way that Castlevania was, and we're getting more Castlevania. There's opportunity for them to redeem themselves. But I mean, I know I get scared when I think of American money getting and like Netflix making more anime.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, one of the hugest appeals of anime is that it is so foreign.
Yeah.
Like I like that it culturally challenges my ideas of what a narrative and what a story is. At least that's what I've gotten out of it so far.
Right.
And so, like, I know that, like, as I see more American money and American influence even, like, you know, with the money comes influence, like, seeping into, like, you know, the way the creative process is going in Japan, I do get a little scared that, like, it's gonna, not make American art better, but make Japanese art worse.
Oh, so you think we're just gonna keep watering it?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if, you know, like, let's say something with, like, Castlevania, like, you know, like, granted that was directed over here, but like, so let's say Devilman Crybaby. If Netflix had been like, oh, we don't want that scene in, we don't think that like is good with American audiences, like I think
I get that.
I think there's like a lot of the secret sauce of anime is made for Japanese people.
Right.
It's not made for American people. But I think that's why I like it so much, is it's like, oh, this challenges what I would think of what a narrative is or like what choices I would make. And that's happening more and more with American stuff. People are breaking the mold. I'm not saying there's not avant-garde or like art in American media, but Japan will just come up with some things that just I feel like
we never
would have signed off on. Like
exactly.
I mean, Ghost Dad and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Like I mean, I think it's like one of the pinnacle things. But like, I don't think an American artist would have thought of that.
No,
like,
no.
I really
Oh God, no.
Not any way that worked. I mean, if you want to look at like, I feel like when we kind of go for like bizarre, we end up with SpongeBob or Adventures
Wacky.
Yeah, like we end up with Fairly Odd Parents. Like we end up with this like cacophony of like senselessness.
Yes, exactly.
Clear
Because
stupidity,
you've got
honestly.
these invincible characters and these invincible dialogues. More IP from American audiences is just always good. For American audiences. I agree with you. I want anime to stay anime and foreign and delicious. But I just think we can also challenge American audiences.
And I agree. I'm just saying, like that is like always like the back of my mind fear.
Oh
like,
yeah, and
Well,
you see it happening.
Well, it is true because like, what was that one anime with Jaden Smith? Like, is that American?
Neo Yokio.
Neo Yokio.
Is
That's
that
American?
Well,
yeah.
it's making fun of anime.
I mean,
so...
at the same time, it's like this is American anime, so it's
It
like
is, yeah. And
the direction that it's
I
going.
found the concept really funny and like interesting to say this. And I would say like that is a Japanese kind of aesthetic that we don't get in America a lot. Is when like Japanese people think of like good media, like they're definitely like I feel like Westerners have this like perception that like, oh, it needs to be good. Whereas like in Japan, it's like, no, it needs to be interesting. Interesting is what is quality over there.
It needs plot.
Exactly. Like it's like no, like omoshiroi desu. Like it needs to be interesting.
Right.
And like as long as they're just kind of like, like to something, they're like, oh, this is good.
Yeah.
Whereas like over here, we're like, I didn't like their choice they made.
Yeah,
like I know better than that as an American.
Well, it's a more independent idea, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a less of a faith in the system.
Why are they putting all these women in my Star Wars? Like,
Oh,
I feel like that's kind of like our perception
He's
over
not
here.
wrong though. You
Oh
know,
my
he's
God.
not wrong.
There's plenty of that, which is annoying because
Yeah.
I want an American Fooly Cooly, okay? I want something that's
Well,
explosive.
we're getting 2 new seasons of Fooly Cooly on Netflix.
Oh boy, yes, we are.
Are you excited for that?
I've never seen Fooly Cooly.
Oh man.
well,
Well, it won't get ruined for you then.
Great.
It's Fooly
love
Cooly.
it.
The reason that I groan at this is because Fooly Cooly it's like if you just went into the the melting pot, like the lightning in a bottle. Like, it's just so raw. Like, I just think Americans would appreciate... There is an angle. Like,
it's like if they went and... It's like we were 10 years from now and somebody was like, we're going to remake Steven Universe.
Yeah.
And we were all just like, why would you do that?
No, why? Why would you do that?
But see, I feel like that's a very Western mentality in the sense that we're like... They're gonna ruin it. They're gonna make bad decisions. Whereas in Japan, the way they like spin off stuff that we never even see or care about over here, like like there being they made a Gurren Lagann anime like after the original Gurren Lagann anime, and I don't give a shit. I'm never gonna watch it. I don't care about it, and I think it's bad. And like my Western mind, whenever I see it, I'm like, I hate that. I wish nobody saw that. But to them, they don't give it. They don't care.
Yeah,
it's like it's just more content. Like we don't.
Let's honor the content.
Yeah,
that
it's interesting. Like
Well, it's like over here because like. It's completely off anime, but it's like I know recently like they've remade like a lot of like older stuff here, like with like Samurai Jack, the season 5.
Yeah,
that was
when they remade
garbage.
No, when they remade Powerpuff Girls, and I'm like, I am never
just make a new animation that is I don't know reminiscent of Powerpuff Girls, but a new IP.
I've never seen social media blow up on like childhood memories.
Well, when you have Blossom,
but that's the thing though. We are also as millennials, we are so... I feel like part of it, too, is, like, because we, like, like, blew through childhood so fast, too, we have such a nostalgia, like, grasp. That, like, anytime anything from our childhood gets changed, we, like, it fucks with our identity.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like in Japan, like, it's probably not that same story.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. That was the same with me, like, when they rechanged. This is gaming, like, just
stuff.
It's like, it's kind of like the same, like, when I remember, like, with Banjo-Kazooie and, like, with Star Fox, and then, like, they just changed it, and I was just like,
oh, yeah.
What is this? Why would you do this?
Video games are, like, a big connector in American and Japanese audiences, because generally, we have a big enough video game market over here that they'll try to ship it out to us
they'll
at
make
the
the game
time.
for us as well.
Yeah,
if they think they have the market. And, like, that's the thing with anime, like, it is just... We titled this American anime, like... In that sense, we are completely acknowledging that, like, anime has had such an influence that, like, it is now, like, being replicated in America.
Exactly. And now
which is exciting. Like, I mean...
It's gonna happen eventually where America makes something that Japanese people want to watch.
Oh, okay. It's happened before. Yeah. So, like, that goes back into, like, the swirl pool of, like, how much, like, Dragon Ball was influenced by, like, the X-Men. Like, and then the X-Men cartoon. And even the Spider-Man cartoon, which we all grew up on.
Yeah. And there's live-action Japanese Spider-Man
There's that, like,
shows.
yeah, like, they made a live-action Spider-Man Power Ranger show, basically. And it's so... different and interesting.
Yeah.
I really like it personally.
No, there's some good moments to it.
There is a Japanese like anime of the Ninja Turtles. You can only see like bits and clips of YouTube. It is the most bizarre thing in the world. I'm just like, Ninja Turtles had a huge influence in Japan. What?
Yeah, which is interesting because we were talking about Ninja Turtles before, like the 2003 TMNT. Mm-hmm. In that, I was gonna say too that like yeah, but they're ninjas. That's Japanese.
Yeah.
It's all a cycle.
1987, they're like, oh, ninjas, it's good.
So exactly. So
it's so symbiotic. It's really interesting.
Yeah, the media is all there, and I just want the best of it, and I don't see why we can't make the best of it here in America for an American audience and for a Japanese audience too, because that's why I want to have more Steven Universe, more things that are, its own thing, because I don't want to just keep taking anime and watering it down. I love watching my foreign stuff. I love the new My Hero Academia. I love, they're doing Dragon Ball Z movie. I'm excited to watch that when they bring it over here, because I know they will, like the 2 days after or something. But it's part of the swirl needs to be some from us, we need to also have.
Well, exactly. Are we getting into a deficit where like back in the early '90s we sent over X-Men, we sent over Spider-Man?
Exactly.
Have we gotten to a point where we're not sending enough over to keep their wheels turning?
Exactly. Yeah. And what I kind of feel about My Hero Academia, I don't know if I've said this or not in any of our videos, but All Might is kind of like he gives his laurels down to Deku. And All Might is definitely an American superhero.
Yeah.
So the idea that he's sort of passing on his sort of like prestige to a Japanese boy, I think is, and it's an anime, I think it's something about like how it's expected now for a Japanese audience to push this superhero ideal, which has normally been an American thing. I mean, at least that's what I think My Hero is trying to investigate. It's like, okay, because My Hero is like, all right, let's do superheroes. Let's do Western superheroes. That's what's really cool about My Hero is it's 100% in on, because there's been other superhero Japanese shows, but the way that they do superheroes is more Power Ranger, more Kamen Rider, more like
typically
justice, like, and that's great. That's a style, but I think it's really interesting because that's what I read from it, at least.
Right. I mean, like, that's the thing. Like, My Hero Academia. Like, let's look for like what the culture churn is. Like, obviously, he picked up a lot of Batman.
Oh yeah.
And I would say our era of Batman, like, for sure. There's definitely a lot of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Look at Stain.
Stain is
like he is Raphael.
Yeah,
like,
he doesn't even have a nose.
So it's interesting to see, like, there is some American culture churn in there, but I would say there's not a ton that I can pick out that's not like super iconic from us. Like, when do we see, like, is Adventure Time too derivative of anime or of things they already have over there to never make it like through the Japanese filter and then back to us again? Like, and that's scary. Like, that is the kind of, like, the art drain, which is
which is bad. So that's why I want to. That's why we watch.
That's why we got to push
and support things like Rebecca Sugar's Steven Universe and Voltron, because those are exciting American things that it's like, and then the problem
that feel standalone enough not to be like they're just going to be like Teen Titans Go. I feel like a Japanese audience looks at it, it's like, we have that show already.
We already have hundreds of those already.
We don't. That's not anything new to us.
Yeah. So finding and pushing that edge, I think, is the goal of American anime, at least. Like, I want a word for American animation that is different than cartoon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's just me thinking wishfully.
Well, it's so hard too because just the way distribution models are changing. Like Rebecca, like Korra. A second season, like, or halfway through the second season, they only released it online because nobody would watch it on TV. They couldn't.
Exactly.
They couldn't have a kid couldn't sit down and watch it and get the whole plot, which is what we want out of it.
Yeah. And what's interesting, the most recent Stephen Bomb, the 4 episodes of Steven Universe that just came out, was released on the Cartoon Network app before. They're not aired yet on the TV show.
They have to wait 2 weeks before.
Because anybody who's still watching cable doesn't care that much.
Exactly, that's the problem. Like Nickelodeon, SpongeBob beats everything else that they put up.
So
why would they?
Why not season 20?
Why would they try and build a story when they can just put on SpongeBob and get more views? Like,
exactly.
And that's the problem. And I think that's
the goal of their
That's
model.
where, like, Voltron breaking in and being kind of like a 6-episode like dump everyone. It's like, this is the only way it's going to work if we really want to keep this going.
And I think, and the Steven Bombs is a good example, and I think that's a nice new platform to sort of expect and look more for if you're considering American IPs and, looking for the new stuff that's bubbling.
Well, it is interesting because, like, I talk to a lot of people online, and I'm really surprised that a lot of them actually hate, like, the 4 episodes or 6 episodes. They're like, I want, like, the whole season so I can just binge out. But I'm like,
binging is very American.
Well, no, like, just binging out. It's like you're not gonna look forward to something new. It's like you already finish it, and then what do you have afterwards?
And for Netflix, I think that problem is too is because they're animating it like themselves, or they're having DreamWorks animate it. They have to keep it so tight that, like, if they make 12 episodes and people don't watch all 12, they're not going to renew another season. No. So they're trying to keep it as hyper-focused and be like, all right, we're going to release 6 episodes. Once they hit X 100,000 views, we'll go ahead and order the next season.
They're being
and we're
careful.
not going to do it anyway. I mean, that's how we get in, look at where Rick and Morty is right this second.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Cartoon Network won't order another season because they don't see a profit return on it. Yet it is so popular that it takes over marketing campaigns of anything else if it makes a joke about it. Like, McDonald's couldn't have paid enough money for the Szechuan sauce, to happen. But, like, here
changed McDonald's.
But Cartoon Network has no way to make make their money on it.
Right.
And so they won't make it, and, like, the art suffers for it. And so I think that's another big takeaway, guys, is support your local American art that is good.
Yeah.
Make sure you're vocal in your community about, like, the shows you like, the shows you don't like.
Yeah.
Watching it online, like, do it, guys. It's easier than ever now,
too. Yeah, exactly.
With the internet.
And our views are really counting for something now. I mean, the only reason Netflix has 1 billion anime is because, 1 billion people have watched anime on their app, and they're like, oh, well, shit, all right, well, let's do some more. So if we get more views on Voltron, we're going to get more content
so,
produced, and if we can find a way to keep focusing on that, but it's all exploratory. We're all clawing forward. We're growing.
That's a KO, guys. We'll catch you next time.